Young. I am the Vancouver School Board Chair, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. With deep gratitude and respect, we are honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Hmakwiyam, Skohomishokomeo, and Tsleil-Waututh. I had the privilege with Vice Chair and Trustee Fraser, along with Allison Ogden, Patricia McNeil, our Superintendent Helen McGregor, to visit school this afternoon to hear from a fellow trustee, John Chenoweth, who also is an Indigenous educator and also is a director on our BC School Trustee Association, to speak to other educators this Pro D Day about ways to incorporate Indigenous learnings into the classroom, and it was absolutely fabulous. So thank you for that today, Helen and the team. Our meeting is currently being broadcast live, and the recordings will be available after the meeting ends. We have a strong commitment to ethical conduct, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure our meetings are conducted in a safe and respectful manner. As a Board of Education for a school district, it's important that we model the behavior that we expect from students in our schools. Thank you, everyone who provided feedback during our financial planning process and our public engagement period. Your input is appreciated very much by the board here and helps us inform the decisions that we make at the table. For our agenda tonight, I'll start with introductions. So staff and trustees are in the boardroom at the Education Center here, and I welcome Superintendent McGregor and Secretary Treasurer Coughlin and fellow trustees, and I'll ask that they introduce themselves, starting with to my right.
Trustee Susie Ma.
Trustee Christopher Richardson.
Trustee Reddy, she, her.
Avachin trustee.
Preeti Friedko, trustee.
Lois Chan-Pedley, trustee.
Janet Fraser, trustee, she, her.
Thank you. We have regrets from Trustee Josh Sang. Okay, let's jump in. Moving to new business.
Chair?
Yes, trustee?
I would like to make an amendment to the agenda.
Sure, we are, oh, good point. Actually, I don't see that tonight. I appreciate you jumping in when you did. What would you like to make a change to?
I would like to add a motion that I had submitted previously, and that motion is about a reinstatement of the living wage. And that was not included in this agenda package. And I would like to ask that that item be placed on this agenda.
For some clarity, did you hear back why it was not included?
Chair, I did hear back, but I am now moving to amend the agenda to include that item.
Okay, just one moment here. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Secretary Treasurer. So because the motion was around labor relations, we are currently in the process of, sorry, trustees, is there something you'd like? Okay, perfect. So it's because it is around labor relations. We are currently in collective bargaining, and so it would, it's not appropriate. It would be more appropriate to be done in a private meeting.
I would challenge, Chair.
Okay, so Secretary Treasurer, do we need to read the motion title or just the fact that I've said, okay, wonderful. We have a challenge of the chair. I'm going to ask for a vote on sustaining the chair. All those in.
Do you not need a seconder to sustain the chair?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a challenge. Is there a seconder? Okay, we have a challenge. Okay, we'll go to a vote. It is not debated because it's not debated as per Robert's rules, so we'll go to a vote.
I would challenge that ruling.
Sure, so if it has to do with the agenda or confirming the agenda, Secretary Treasurer, would you please confirm?
My understanding of the Roberts Rules of Order is that a procedural matter is not subject to debate. It is simply stating what the challenge is and then proceeding to the vote.
Okay,
Chair?
yes, trustee.
So I had indicated that I wanted a specific motion on discussing the living wage reinstatement, right? So that will
Correct.
be recorded in the minutes as a request, right? And then the proceedings will be recorded in the minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The entire meeting is recorded. Those in favor of sustaining the chair? Okay, trustee Richardson, Chen, Friedcoat, Chan Pedley, and Fraser, thank you. Those opposed? Okay, and I will abstain, but trustees Ma and Reddy opposed. Okay, so we'll move on to new business, beginning with item 2.1. We will ask now for an update on the 2026-27 financial plan engagement.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm going to pass it over to Patricia McNeil, Director, to give you an update on the engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. The engagement summary report included in this evening's package and posted to our website outlines input we received to assist in the board's consideration of the 2026-2027 financial plan. Engagement activities were grounded in our education plan, the framework for enhancing student learning, and follow best practice standards by the International Association of Public Participation, or IAP2. Input was sought from inherent rights holders, stakeholder groups, students, families, staff, and the broader public through a mix of methods and activities. The engagement period was open from January 12th to April 16th and included multiple opportunities such as meetings, workshops, and discussions with inherent rights holders and formal stakeholder groups, as well as written submissions to the board, an online survey, which was available publicly and to staff, as well as students, and last week's committee of the whole meeting and public delegation meeting. Trustees received a copy of all written submissions on a weekly basis, as well as a copy of survey responses in early March. An interim summary report was available that first week of March as well. The report in your package this evening is an update to that interim report to include information about input and feedback received since early March. Across engagement activities, participants highlighted priorities related to classroom staffing and supports, a focus on student learning and course offerings, as well as schedules, learning resources, student well-being and mental health, inclusion and equity, facilities and school or learning environments, as well as supports to student families. It's important to note that priorities raised through this year's engagement reflect patterns that we've heard through previous years' financial planning, and I would be pleased to take any questions trustees may have.
Thank you very much, Patricia, and thanks for all the work that you and your team did in this engagement process. Are there any questions from trustees at the table? Wonderful. Thank you again for that. Okay, Superintendent, do you have anything to add? No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, item 2.2, trustee motions. Okay, so these are all regarding the draft 2026-27 financial plan, and we have quite a few to consider. So I'd like to ask my fellow trustees to present their proposed motions, starting with trustee Reddy.
Thanks, Chair. So I'll just read it from the screen, and it's on the package on page 3. So I'd like to move that it be resolved that the VSB allocate $75,000 for consultant fees, supplies, and miscellaneous costs to conduct a feasibility survey and study in consultation with employee groups on the planning, implementation, and costs of a VSB-operated pilot delivering licensed school-age childcare, out-of-school care at multiple school sites, delivered where feasible by existing support staff staff with prioritized but not exclusive enrollment for current and prospective VSB employees and aligned with provincial Childcare BC expansion objectives. Be it further resolved that the feasibility work include a district-wide survey of VSB families and employees to identify unmet out-of-school care needs, including the identification of VSB staff requiring care, the assessment of potential school sites and available space, including multipurpose rooms and suitable classroom space, identifying staffing models and labor considerations within existing collective agreements and regulatory frameworks in consultation with employee groups, enrollment prioritization approaches for VSB employees, applying an equity lens, and estimated costs, revenues, and operational requirements of a multi-site pilot, including space upgrades and program materials and supplies. Be it further resolved that staff report back with an interim report by June 2026 and final report by September 15th, 2026 on a baseline survey results and plan for one-year follow-up survey, feasibility, costs, and proposed scale of a multi-site pilot, including potential number of space and sites, employee group interest and facility considerations, and anticipated impacts on recruitment and retention of VSB staff.
Do I have a seconder? Trustee Ma, thank you. Trustee Reddy, would you like to provide us with your rationale?
Yes, also in the same agenda package on page 4, I'll just read the whereas clauses to begin. So whereas the province of British Columbia has identified school-based childcare expansion as a priority through Childcare BC and through the BC budget in 2026, which includes capital and operating funds for the expansion of childcare on school grounds. Whereas access to licensed school-age childcare remains insufficient to meet demand across the Vancouver School District, whereas many VSB employees experience barriers to securing reliable before and after school care for their children, whereas lack of accessible childcare affects employee recruitment, retention, and workforce stability in public education, whereas childcare responsibilities disproportionately affect employees with young families, particularly women and primary caregivers, and whereas school-based childcare programs delivered by qualified staff can expand access and support employee well-being. So I'm moving this motion as part of our budget, and just note that it's supported by an open letter from parents with over 1,000 signatures. It's responding to an increasing need for out-of-school care, not just for VSB staff, but for families and students that we're already serving. So this motion is asking for the board to take an initial step, respond to that need, which is growing daily and resulting in crisis and stress level situation for families across the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reddy. I appreciate you bringing a motion around childcare. It's important to our city. Trustee Fraser.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Trustee Reddy, for bringing forward this motion. And I would like to propose an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind walking us through what we see on the screen?
So the amendment moves that the key pieces are that the VSB allocate up to $75,000. It's a limit, not a prescribed amount. And then what I think is really important is defining the licensed childcare that would be operated by the VSB to be high quality, inclusive, affordable, and cost neutral. And then below then with some of the crossing outs and added words, the intent is to focus the work on the feasibility study. And then if the feasibility study is positive, then consider additional work. And then finally, to change the timeline from a very short timeline of reporting back in June and then mid-September to have the June update, and then for the study to be complete in the 26-27 school year. So that's a summary of the amendment.
Is there a second? Or thank you, Trustee Chan Pedley. Please provide us with your rationale.
Okay, thank you. And as we know, childcare is so important in this city. We have heard from many people during this budget engagement and from many people for years before that about the difficulties families have in securing childcare, and then how expensive it can be, even if you get a space, and then how disruptive it is to family life. My frustration is that the requirement to, or the need is so high. My frustration is that the provincial government is downloading this responsibility onto school districts. We have for many years been fully part of the process to get capital funds from the province to update our school-based childcare. The last call for requests was in September 2024. We put in 6 requests and we do not yet know if they were successful or not. So it's difficult to move ahead when we're not getting the support from the province. And so if we're going to do this work ourselves, then I think we need to be focused in, because any money that goes towards childcare is coming out of the classroom. So we have to balance our responsibility as trustees for public education, with what we are hearing from so many people across the city about the need for childcare and the ability to have childcare on school grounds to make life easier for families. I believe we absolutely need to have high quality, inclusive, affordable childcare. That is what we should be offering, but it also should be cost neutral. So the costs of offering childcare should be recouped by and if it is fees for the childcare, but also any monies put in by the province to make it affordable for families. The feasibility work would set out what is possible within our district. And then I think if we know if something is feasible, then we could look at whether we can prioritize enrollment and conduct surveys. We know from previous updates at the Facilities Planning Committee that even once you get capital funding for a child to create childcare spaces, it can take a year, maybe 2, to actually get the license in place to be able to start operating. So there is a lot of time to continue to refine the work if we are intending to go ahead as a board. And speaking to the timeline, we want to do the work well. We want to make sure that the consultant who comes on board has the time to understand our district. To some extent, all districts are the same, and to some extent, all districts are different. I'm concerned that if we get a final report in September, it might be that the ministry has not, even by that time, set the parameters for the newly announced funds that were announced in the budget, which were $5 million for capital funding and $20 million for operating. I'm not sure if that $20 million for operating is the money that we as a district and all the other districts across BC already received, the $175,000 for the early, I maybe forget the acronym or not get it quite right, but early childcare grant. So I don't know if the $20 million is already accounted for in that money, or if that is additional money. That is something we'll have to wait to hear from the province about. And I want to make sure that we're able to do the work with the information available to be able to actually make a decision. So I think a longer timeline in light of not having information from the province, in light of wanting to consult appropriately with employee groups. A lot of this work will be over the, a lot of the timeline originally proposed would be July, August, the beginning of September, which is not an easy time to be consulting with employee groups. So I hope that trustees will support this amendment. I think it's important that we continue to push forward on out of school care spaces on school grounds. And again, it reflects my frustration that the province is not stepping in to do this work and is instead downloading to school districts.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Freako.
Thank you, Trustee Reddy, for bringing this motion, and thank you for the amendment, Trustee Fraser. I am in support of this amendment. Um, And one of the main reason is many families, both within our employee workforce and across the broader community, we've seen everyone facing the same type of challenges for childcare. And they're struggling for affordable out of care. By prioritizing this and, having investing in the feasible study, we're not just committing to a program yet, but we're committing to the understanding of the need, the cost, and the opportunities through the proper consultation and data that we need. This will also allow us to explore a model that is more inclusive, sustainable.
Sorry to interrupt, trustee. We're only speaking to the amendment right now. So if you want to just keep your,
I am speaking to the amendment only.
okay. And
Yeah.
you, just so that if it's only the amendment, because you're able to speak to the entire motion after we, so just to the red that you see, the changes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then,
Well, I think
Thanks.
I've spoken, I've spoken on the amendment. I think the timeline on this for June 2026 Facilities Planning Committee meeting is actually perfect because September is when the school starts and we know how staff and everybody is overloaded with the startup of a school year. So I agree with this amendment.
okay, any other comments on the amendment that we see? Trustee Reddy and then trustee Ma.
Thanks, thanks trustee Fraser for the amendment, the printout and the copy here. I just wanted to raise a couple of points based on your amendments here. One is that the School Act already stipulates the quality, inclusivity, and the cost recovery nature of out-of-school care. So I want to clarify that there's never an intention when the School Act was amended, nor with the new BC Budget 2026 for the funding to come out of classrooms. So I want to be really clear that it wouldn't be allowable from what is written into the School Act about this in terms of districts actually offering the service. And the second part was just about, I recognize the frustrations around sort of applying and not receiving funds, but as I had mentioned, this would be about the new dollars allocated in 2026 that are meant to be scoped by June. So that was the intention there, is that our report would align with the provincial government's direction and new funding that's available specifically for districts to deliver out of school care. So I want to be clear that that's the alignment that I'm seeking and therefore feel less supportive of the revision of the update at the June meeting and would want more of an interim report, something more comprehensive so that this board could take action. I do think that delaying this until the 26-27 school year has risks because we know that out of school care correlates positively with higher academic achievement. So the longer we're waiting for a report to take action when we could have that action taken by this board. I just worry that we're delaying the possible results for families in the district. And the last piece here that I just wanted to respond to was about the removal of the piece stipulating recruitment and retention. In this district in particular, as well as some surrounding districts, but our district does have some pretty serious and urgent issues with recruitment and retention of workforce across the board and in many employee groups. And so the intention there was to send a signal with this motion that this could be an attribute for attracting staff and then keeping staff in the district who are clearly struggling with the same unmet childcare needs. So I wouldn't be in support of this amendment for those reasons. Wanted to be clear about that. Thank you.
Trustee Ma.
A question to trustee Fraser. You've crossed off the first dash as well as the fourth one down. Can you explain why you've done that?
So those pieces are incorporated in the additional work. So I think the key piece is to do the feasibility study first. If it's feasible for the district to offer this type of childcare, VSB operated childcare, then we should consider prioritized enrollment for VSB employees and a survey. But if it's not feasible for us to offer it, then that would be work that wouldn't be necessary until we know the answer.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yeah.
Please. Oh, your mic isn't on.
Sorry. So my question again is the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth dash down where it says applying an equity lens, that piece has been crossed off. And so I'm asking why that particular phrase was crossed off.
The intent was not to take out applying an equity lens, not to make it inequitable, but to be maybe a little more concise. I think we apply an equity lens in everything we do, so I'm confident that if we do this work, it will be with an equity lens.
It is in our strategic plan, so I trust that is being done. Trustee Ma, do you have a comment before, or another one before we go to Trustee Richardson? Okay, I'll come back to you. Trustee Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking, I think there's no doubt that we all want increased access to before and after school care. So I agree with these amendments from the point of view and the clarification that I think the assumption is that it is inclusive and affordable because those are key items, and to repeat them, although it may be in the School Act, I'm not sure how many people refer to the School Act when they're looking at what we're passing here. As for, and I think it's just the timing of it and to be realistic. I know the provincial government in your comments to your motion that the government has said that they're going to provide additional funding. But if we look at screening, that was K-3, and we still are struggling with K. So I'm not too hopeful that we'll get entire funding that they have promised in the budget. So I think that the idea of waiting is useful. And I agree that the retention is something that we want to do as well. So I think I appreciate the purpose of the amendment is simply to proceed, but to, in fact, be a little bit more realistic in terms of what is possible for this very important efforts.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. Would anyone who hasn't spoken yet like to speak? Okay, back to you, Trustee Ma.
Yes, I have an amendment to the amendment, and I will give it to
Flavia, please. Thank you. Or Secretary Treasurer. Okay, Trustee Ma, it is changed, I think. Could it be a different color? It's bold and underlined. Perfect. Trustee Ma, would you mind introducing your amendment to the amendment? Thank you. Trustee Ma, would you mind turning your microphone on and introducing your amendment?
I need to have a seconder to my amendment to the amendment.
Sorry, does she not get to introduce her amendment? First, okay, okay. So what you see on the screen right now, for those who are asked to second it, if you could just look at it for a moment, and then I'll ask for a seconder. Okay, Trustee Reddy, thank you very much. Trustee Ma, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you. So I think what is important here is that if we are going to be using classroom spaces where teachers have their resources and materials in the classroom, we want to ensure that those materials and resources are safe and secure. I know that in some schools where there is before and after school childcare in classrooms and spaces where teachers use it during the day, there are lockable cabinets, there are lockable storage for those teachers to put away some of the things that they may not want disturbed or moved when you have other young people in that area. So I believe that we need to have that in there because I think it will help our staff feel more confident and secure.
Wonderful, thank you. And please excuse me. I said, would you like to introduce your motion? What I meant to say was read it, just for accessibility purposes in future, just to read the changes that we see in case anyone's listening and is not able to see what we see on the screen. Thank you very much, Trustee Ma. Please.
Okay, so under the second dash, at the end of that sentence or that line, I have added and ensuring that utilized classroom spaces contain safe and secure storage for teachers.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments on the amendment to the amendment that is bolded and underlined on the screen? Trustee Chen-Pedley.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really good amendment to kind of offer reassurance for teachers. I know there are a lot of concerns, like Trustee Ma has mentioned, that all the teachers' gear and students' artwork, et cetera, are safely secured, are safe and secure while being used for purposes such as out of school childcare. So I think this is a really good, important amendment and an important point to consider in a feasibility report.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I wanted to support your amendment to the amendment. As you, myself, and Trustee Fraser sat together and advocated for this in new builds at our BC School Trustee Association AGM, it is important that we provide spaces where there is a safe locking place to lock up material. So thank you, and I will support your amendment to the amendment. And would you like to say anything further before we go to a vote?
Yes, I have a question procedurally. So if this amendment to the amendment passes, then it becomes a part of this amendment.
Correct.
When we get to voting for the amendment, should that amendment fail, what would happen to the amendment to the amendment?
That would fail. The amendment to the amendment would fail, and we would go back to the original motion without any amendments.
So Chair, then if that were to be the case, would I be able to move an amendment again?
I am seeing a yes from our Secretary Treasurer. Procedurally, yes, you would be able to.
I love asking skill testing questions.
Okay, any other comments before we go to a vote? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to the amendment that you see bolded and underlined on the screen? Okay, unanimous support. Thank you, Trustee Ma. Now we'll go to the amended motion. The amended amendment as amended. Thank you. Okay, so we have, as you can see, we have a motion with an amendment in red, with amendments in red. And so we'll go to anyone who would like to speak to the amended amendment that you see in red. Trustee Reddy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So yeah, just reflecting on some of the discussion so far on the amendment, I just am pretty concerned at the removal of the survey with families in particular, and the removal of survey that's sort of being replaced by study overall. And just want to highlight that this is a parent-driven demand in our district. So without having engagement at some level through a survey, I worry sort of about the fulsome quality of the feasibility study. So I wanted to highlight that for staff's consideration, should this amendment pass, that would be an important piece not to omit from this work, but also for trustees to consider how many voices would be lost without that survey. Knowing that they would be the users of these potential new sites. I also wanted to highlight that some of the need, which was underscored by a letter to us from MLA Nikki Sharma, who's also BC's Attorney General, a very busy individual, sent in a letter asserting the importance of the voice of parents and families. So I do think this would be a severe omission. And so I just wanted to add that to my reason for voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Trustee Fraser, and then we'll go to Trustee Ma.
Thank you. And what in response to that, what was just raised, I would say that the feasibility study is the technical work to see what is possible. And the survey hasn't been removed, but it's being put after the feasibility study, so that if we know we're able to do this, then we can survey to see where the work would be. So I don't think it's being lost. I do see that the work continue, and coming back to another point about the anticipated impacts on recruitment and retention, I see that as another sequential step in the work. If we are able to prioritize enrollment for VSB employees, then we could look at the impacts of recruitment and retention. We can be efficient in the work we do in setting up each step to then go into the next steps. And I do have a question, Trustee Reddy. I think you said that the ministry's new funding, the way that that would be rolled out would be scoped in June. Is that, I haven't been able to find any information about the rollout. Is that something, I'm not sure of the wording you used when you said scoped by June.
Are you finished? Okay, Trustee Reddy, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'm glad to add, I mean, based on previous practice, when they announce the budget, then we get some information. So the idea would be that our report would align with that, and then we can kind of know what the guidelines and parameters are by then. Thank you.
So do we have, I'm just want to ask staff, do we have any indication from the ministry of when the guidelines and parameters would be available to school districts?
Superintendent?
We have not. We saw the same general announcement that you did. We've received no specific details. As you know, when we do, we share that with trustees. So nothing at this time.
If I may
Yes.
follow up on that.
Fraser.
So the letter from MLA Sharma has also already been referenced, but I could also highlight that in the letter it says this program is in its early stages and more details will be made available as the initiative is rolled out. So I don't get that there's a sense of urgency in providing that information to school districts. So I will be very happy if that information lands on our desk tomorrow, and as soon as it arrives, then we could start working. But I just want to make sure that we are aligned and able to do the work in a thoughtful way.
Trustee Ma, I think you were next.
Yes, thank you. So a feasibility study could include a survey. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think they come one after the other, because how would you be able to determine if something is feasible unless you ask questions? And asking questions could be a survey. So I don't think I can support it the way it is, because I think it's too restrictive. I think a study is general and could include a study. It could include focus groups. It could be meeting with different stakeholders. It could be a whole myriad of things when you're talking about feasibility. So I find that, it's just too restrictive.
Okay, are there any more comments on the amendment in red? Trustee Chan Pedley?
Thank you, Chair. I've gone years without organized childcare, and I've waited so long my kids have aged out of it. I understand the need to want to do this quickly. And I see this feasibility study as and streamlining it as a way to do really focused work and make sure that we can do all the other rest of the things because we have limited time and we have limited budget. So I don't think expanding, I want to limit the scope to as small as possible so that we can get that information in front of us and make that decision before we commit ourselves to putting more money and more time into doing all that other necessary work. If we are to look at expand on childcare, I think, if the province wants to finally get off their butts and give us something tomorrow, anytime soon, that would be great. And I think we can then look at expanding the scope of doing this work. But I think at this point, a streamlined feasibility report is what we need.
Would anyone who has not spoke like to speak next? Okay, Trustee Richardson.
I'm suggesting that we vote for the amendments that are there. I think that one of the issues with this will be expectation management. I mean, frankly, if the survey says, would you like to have additional childcare spots? Of course, the answer is yes. They've been waiting for years. But I think that that the idea is that we'll have further information once we're done the feasibility study. As for the amendment to the amendment, in terms of ensuring classroom spaces contain safe and secure storage, I agree. I think this board or this district was criticized by some in Victoria as being the teachers not giving or were not using enough classroom space opportunities for private or not-for-profit daycare opportunities. So that's essential. But as we did, I think, several months ago, is we asked that the area standards document be amended to ensure that. So I think that these amendments are being realistic, and I think that we should proceed. And there's no doubt we all want this to work, but I think that given the lack of funding by the provincial government, but I'm now talking about the main motion, so I will stop and suggest we pass these amendments.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Ma?
I have a question through the chair. So this $75,000, would it all come out of operating, or would?
Sorry, we're just talking about the amendment right now, and we'll go back to, we're just talking about the red, and then we'll come back to the body of the motion after the amendment has been dealt with.
But my question is about the amendment because this up to.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So does the money come out of capital, operating, or a blend?
Sorry, I'm just going to challenge you there. It says up to, you're asking now about, Trustee Fraser explained why she included the up to in her rationale for the amendment. And so now we're only debating what's in red, and then where the money comes from will be a question for after the amendment has been dealt with.
But that may influence my vote on whether I vote in favor of the amendment or not.
Secretary Treasurer, would you mind weighing in on this? I would like to be as close to process as possible and want to respect the rules of Robert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. The way I read it, the amendment as displayed on the screen is that it does not have anything to do with a specific dollar value. The motion itself does. So I would suggest that the question is best addressed once you return to either the motion as amended or the original motion.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say that the amendment before I ask trustee Fraser her final thoughts, I just want to say that the amendment does take into account steps. And as we know, budget is very strained. And so asking the changes made in red address that, why go to step 2 if step 1 doesn't allow for step 2. So I am in support of the amendment, and I'll ask trustee Fraser to make any last comments before we go to a vote. Okay, seeing none there, we'll go to a vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Trustee Richardson, trustee Chan Pedley, trustee Fraser, and trustee Young. Those opposed? Okay, we have trustee Ma, trustee Reddy, trustee Chen, and those abstaining. Okay, trustee Friedcoat. So required to pass, we would need 5, correct? Because or an majority, okay, the abstention is fine. Okay, so the amendment passes, so we'll go to now the motion as amended. Trustee Friedcoat?
I have few questions in regards to the main motion now. So, sorry, I missed the part where you said 75,000 could come out of the operating cost.
Sorry, do you have a question?
That's a question.
Okay, who, to Secretary Treasurer? Okay, Secretary Treasurer, a question around the 75,000, please.
Trustees would have to identify the source of funding. There is no source of funding identified for this motion. Your options are to either identify savings somewhere in the budget, or given that this is a one-time expense, you can look at utilizing some of the available contingency reserve that exists in the operating fund.
Trustee Friedcoat, please continue.
Sorry, just a follow-up. So what I'm understanding is just to do the work, just to get this report, and the consultant fees and supplies, it's gonna cost about up to 75,000, where one staff full-time position could be covered within that cost. Is that right?
Secretary Treasurer?
To the extent that position will only be funded for 1 year, yes, but this would be one-time expenses that could be covered from one-time funding versus a staff position typically would be ongoing, and those funds would not be appropriate to be coming out of contingency reserve.
Do you have any follow-up? No? Okay, Trustee Richardson, did I see your hand up? Is there anyone who would like to speak? We're speaking to the motion as amended that you see on the screen there. You can go ahead if you'd like.
Fine. I am in favor of this motion as amended. I think it's realistic. It does address a very important need. My hesitation of this motion and the difficulty, when I read the petition that was given to us by a member of the public, I think last week, I read, I think the title of it, or the title of the motion, is increasing out of care spaces. And VSB recruitment and retention efforts. We as a board want more out of school care spaces. And wherever they come from, we would, and I think the public and the users of those would be happy. So the only reservation I have of this motion is that it's not encouraging and looking at why third-party providers who are already providing all of our daycare spaces aren't providing more. And I think the previous discussion in terms of the amendment to the amendment is that there's been some hesitation to find spaces within our existing district that we can utilize. So I think this is an important motion, but I think that, and I'm certainly in favor of it, because from whatever source we can find more spaces, because I believe many parents that I speak to are making decisions on where they want their child to enroll based upon the availability of out-of-school care. And therefore, our dream, or our former dream, or our past practice of encouraging neighborhood schools is faltering because schools are going, students are being placed out of their immediate catchment because of daycare. So if we can resolve that. So with those comments, which are really to say, let's look at this motion and move forward for success, but also try to expand existing needs. I do note that in the existing budget proposal that we have included an additional 1.0 FTE support staff to assist in the childcare efforts of the district. And that is just another opportunity to have a shot at the provincial government. When they changed the name of the Ministry of Education and added childcare, they just didn't, it was in name only. There's not the adequate funding to allow us to manage the daycare we have and to encourage further improvements to it. And so I think that this board has responded to the fact that we want more daycare by providing the 1.0 FTE manager that is funded out of this funding from the province. But we've gone beyond that, and this motion will go a further step towards providing the daycare, out of school care that we, our parents are requesting. So I think this is a necessary motion. But I guess the outstanding question is still, what are we going to do? What is the appropriate funding source? And others may want to add where the money should be coming from to enable this worthy effort to proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion as amended on the screen. I'm not sure if procedurally I should ask Vice Chair Fraser to take over. Would you mind? Just so that we're.
Sure, I can take over and ask you to provide the Secretary Treasurer with your amendment.
So I'll just read out my amendment is to ask for the Ministry of Education and Childcare for this up to $75,000.
Sorry, we're just waiting for it to come up on the screen and it's there. Okay, so the amended motion is being further amended. Moved by Trustee Young and seconded by Trustee Freecoat. So speaking to this amendment, Trustee Young.
Thank you. Our responsibility and mandate is for K-12 education. And the downloading of responsibility from our provincial government and MLAs who are representatives in Vancouver, who understand the needs of their community. I understand where their heart is. However, they hold the purse strings and they consistently ask for us to take responsibility for things that we are not mandated to do. And I really wanted to support everything around this table and my colleagues, and I just couldn't bear to be asked for us to take K-12 education funds. As Trustee Freecoat mentioned, that could be an assistant in a classroom for a year to spend on something that the ministry should be doing or providing funds to do. I am super grateful for MLA Sharma because this shouldn't be a hard decision for her to take to her government and to ask for support from her colleagues, especially the ones that represent our city and understand the needs of the community. And so That is why I'm asking for support for the amendment that you see on the screen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this? Trustee Chin, Trustee Richardson, and then Trustee Champedley.
Just a clarified question. So means like if ministry is not providing funding, we are not doing this feasibility study?
Trustee Young?
We are going to ask, yes, the intention is that we do not spend K-12 education money on a feasibility study, as we do get information very similar to that from our staff, reported to us twice a year.
No follow-up? Okay, Trustee Richardson?
I appreciate that we want the Ministry of Education and Childcare to pay for this. I guess I must remember about a year ago, we received a whole lot of pressure. There were meetings between the Premier and some students to encourage that AEDs be introduced in our schools. This board voted, realizing we need to fund a motion. We can't just say we want to do something, but we have to say where the money's coming from. We said it was going to come out of local capital, which we don't have a lot of. The fact that it probably comes out of the Lord Roberts Annex budget, we kind of soft pedaled. We paid for them because we wanted them in the school by September 1st, and we needed to be able to pay for them or to identify a source before we could proceed. And the ministry was giving lots of thoughts that they would encourage that. And then they came back and said, but we're not going to fund you. So I don't hold a lot of hope that the ministry will provide this funding. And I think this project is too important to not proceed. I guess I'm back to where my dilemma was before when I spoke a few moments ago, is how do we afford to pay for this out of our existing budget so that we can proceed? Because frankly, we may be waiting a long time for the, although they could give us the money tomorrow, but I'm not willing to take that chance. So I'm going to vote against the amendment.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. Trustee Champedley?
Thank you, Chairperson. Same sentiment. I so want to support this amendment. You're super right, Chairperson, that the costs keep getting downloaded to us and it's unfair. And to take these dollars out of the classroom to do this report is really, really tough. But given that the province hasn't done anything for us, even the absolute bare minimum of upgrading our contingent, multiple seismically unsafe schools where children go to every day and staff work at every day. I don't think the work will get done if we tie this to MECC allocation. I think Trustee Reddy's rationale has addressed the reasons for why this work is absolutely necessary to be done and done quickly. So I think I am not in support of this amendment. I'm sorry. And I think we just have to find 75 Gs somehow to pay for it.
Trustee Freecoat?
Thank you, Chair. I am actually in support of this amendment. I was really hesitating to spend 75K on a feasibility study where we could be actually allocating a full-time staff, a support staff that's needed every single day in schools. Given that this work aligns with the Ministry of Childcare, Education and Childcare, it's appropriate body to fund this feasibility work. It's just a report, again, another survey that we're spending up to 75K for. At the time we're making such a difficult decision on budget and everything, where it's impacting the students in the classroom. It's important that the education funding remain focused on direct services to the students and not on some type of study where I think the Ministry of education and childcare is responsible for. So I'm in support of this.
Trustee Ma?
Can I try? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak in opposition of the amendment to the motion because I believe that the time is now. I don't think we can wait to get funding to do this. In the last 4 years, we have heard from the public and from parents that they need childcare space. They need before and after school space. We just received a letter with 1,000 signatures on it. At every venue that I go to, when I talk to parents who have young children and to grandparents, they talk about the importance of childcare, before and after school childcare. And I believe that if we wait to get this money, the answer will probably be no. Meanwhile, another year goes by, another 2 years goes by. And I think we need to move on this. I think in order for us to have the study done, it will inform us in terms of how to move forward with this. And the new board in the fall will have to make some decisions. And that's why I am not in favor of this amendment.
Trustee Reddy?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I wanted to just go back to what the Secretary Treasurer had also offered in terms of our own budget process. So really the intention for this meeting and this board is to take action with our budget. And I do believe the Secretary Treasurer has outlined a couple options, including education admin, and previously discussing the legal and consultation fees line. Although I don't know what that line item is at this moment. That information was requested, but those are two possible sources, and then adding from this discussion tonight, the restricted surplus. So I think it is a matter of the will of this board and our budget to take action on a Vancouver issue that wouldn't be met by asking the province to do this at a wide scale level. We've seen other districts also take action. I did want to clarify that there is a mandate for districts to take this on, to explore the initiation of school board led out of school care provision, and to confirm that this isn't about reallocating funds for education assistance. So the education admin funds and legal consultation are not a core part of those in classroom services. So I wanted to be really clear that that wouldn't be the case, and nor do I think it would be allowable in our case. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this amendment? Trustee Young, would you like to?
Thank you. I do want to thank everyone at the table because Vancouver School Board consistently shows leadership in ways like we heard Trustee Richardson mention, where we follow Vancouver coastal health requirements, yet we get mandated to do something that we do not get funds for. And so it is something we fought for and we were denied. And so I appreciate that we still have that commitment and that we can still sit around the table and talk about how this is ridiculous, that we're consistently asked to do things that are not in our mandate. So I just appreciate you all. These are hard decisions and it's very frustrating.
So then we can move to the vote on this amendment. So all those in favor? Trustee Young, Trustee Freecoat, and Trustee Chen, and those against? Trustee Reddy, Trustee Richardson, Trustee Ma, myself, and Trustee Chan-Pedley. So the amendment does not pass. And I will hand the chair back to you, Trustee Young.
Thank you. Okay,
Sorry, Chair.
yes,
Point of personal privilege.
yes,
5-minute recess, please.
yes, we absolutely can take a break. We're gonna take a quick break so that everyone can do their business. We'll return I'm gonna give 10 minutes, 11, so we can be right on at 6:15. We'll see you back in here at 6:15. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for accommodating our recess. And we will now go back to what we see on the screen, which is a discussion on the motion as amended that we see on up on the screens here. Any comments of Trustee Friedcoat and then Trustee Fraser and then Trustee Ma?
I have a question, Chair. If any of the staff would like to answer. Has any of this study has been done in the past or anything that was proposed in regards to out-of-school childcare spaces? Or have we received any information from Ministry of Education and Childcare in regards to this?
Okay, I'm going to look to staff. Secretary Treasurer Coughlin.
Significant work has been done with respect to identifying school sites that can be used for childcare. And as you know, we have submitted multiple funding applications to the Ministry of Education and Childcare for creating those additional childcare spaces on school grounds. So that has been the focus of our work. We did also have a pilot a couple of years ago at Strathcona Elementary, where we piloted before and after school care for kindergarten students, which the ministry labeled Seamless Day. And that was a pilot that was not successful at Strathcona in Vancouver. Other than that, we have not done a complete feasibility study for the VSB as operator of childcare or before and after school care.
Do you have a follow-up on that? Go ahead.
So we, from what I understand, so we do have a data about childcare, how many spaces we need for childcare. So doing this study, it's kind of like a repetition of what has already been done.
So there is a lot of community data that identifies the broad need for additional childcare spaces in Vancouver. What we have done specifically at the VSB was look at our existing facilities and opportunities for converting spaces that currently are used either as classrooms or libraries or multipurpose rooms into childcare spaces. We have not done a specific study, the VSB has not done a study on how many childcare spaces are required on school grounds.
Any other follow-up? Okay, Trustee Fraser?
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to make an amendment for where the money would come from and add that it would be from operating contingency.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Chan Pedley. Trustee Fraser.
I think because this is the motion under consideration is to spend up to $75,000 on a one-time basis. And I think because it's a one-time basis, the best place to come from is the operating contingency. If this motion passes, there was always the intent to have an update at in June. So that seems to indicate that the work would start this year. So it's, in a sense, it's not part of the 26-27 budget as the work's already starting. I don't want to displace any employees for this work. I am anxious that if we as a district start putting money into childcare, then that might be the start of a slippery slope. And while I can live with one time 75,000 to the intent is get things moving, I would be anxious about any additional spending. But I think taking it from, on a one-time basis from operating contingency is the best situation for where we're at.
Question to staff on our contingency and if we meet and will continue to meet policy requirements around that.
So our contingency reserve, as outlined in the draft financial plan on page 48, is estimated to sit at 6.6 million, which is slightly under the minimum of 1% mandated through policy. The 1% value would be 6.76 million. So if this motion passes, we would be left with roughly 6.5 million in the contingency reserve.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Not seeing any, we'll go to voting on the amendment that we see in red. Those in favor? Trustee Ma, Trustee Richardson, Trustee Reddy, Trustee Chan-Pedley, Trustee Fraser, Trustee Young. Those opposed? Trustee Chen and Trustee Friedcoat. Okay, that amendment has been supported and will now be written in. As we see right now on the screen, it is the motion as amended a few times. Trustee Ma.
I have another amendment to this.
Wonderful. Would you mind just reading or giving us the words of your amendment?
I have given it. So I would move to insert this at the end of this motion. The wording would be that upon completion of this feasibility study, we ask the MECC to fund the VSB with the cost borne from the feasibility study.
Thank you, and we'll just wait to see it up before we ask for a seconder. Trustee Ma, your microphone is still on. Thank you. Trustee Ma, does this look the way that you'd like? Yeah. Wonderful. Is there a seconder? Trustee Richardson. Thank you. Trustee Ma, would you like to introduce?
We just had a long discussion before the break about, that the ministry needs to show us support. And so I think that this is one way that we can do it. We can request. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, but I think that we need to be seen as doing that. And I am comfortable with this now because it does not hold up the study.
Trustee Chen.
Questions. From the previous discussion that I assume everyone's feel that the ministry is not supporting this. So what happened, like we spend money from the operating contingency, which already have a hole on it, and we have a bigger hole for spending another 75,000, and then ministry is not supporting it and not giving us money. Then we still have to find money to fulfill the operating contingency fund the whole, right?
Any other comments? Trustee Fraser.
I'm in support of the amendment. I just wonder about using the word "we." Is that clear that it's the board, or do we need to be specific? I guess I'm asking the Secretary Treasurer.
It would be clear if we replaced "we" with the board.
Okay. Trustee Ma?
I think that's a fine idea if we have unanimous consent to change it.
I'm seeing anyone in opposition of that? Okay, a friendly amendment or a friendly change? Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, any other comments? Trustee Freecoat.
I feel this is what I would support for sure, because the cost, we should not be incurring the cost of what's not our job. And it should fall back on the ministry. So thank you for this amendment and I'll support it for sure.
Okay, seeing no other comments. Okay, Trustee Reddy.
Just briefly, I understand the intention. I worry that we're retroactively asking the ministry to fund something that we're committing as a board to fund. So I just don't see it shifting our goal as a board to actually do this work in its initial steps. Thank you.
Trustee Richardson.
I think it's would be fair to say that this is an aspirational provision. Your daughter will see pink unicorns before this happens. But I think the intent is that we are not being silent any longer, and that we just want to remind that when you change the name of the ministry and add childcare, there are some responsibilities that go along with it.
Okay, and I support this amendment, but I'm frustrated that we wouldn't ask first, see what they say, and then make a decision, and that now we're just making a decision to spend K-12 educational funds on something that we are not mandated to do, and then asking for the money later. We saw in previous history how that worked out for the board and the district. And so I do just want to remind everyone around the table what happened with some other initiatives that we took. But again, I am supporting this because I think Vancouver School District has showed incredible leadership in a lot of these challenges and challenging times. And so I'll support this amendment. All those in favor? Trustee Ma, Trustee Richardson, Trustee Freecoat, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Those opposed? Trustee Reddy and Trustee Chen. Okay, so the amendment carries, and so now we're looking at the motion with many amendments passed on the screen. Are there any further comments or amendments before we move on to the vote? Okay, thank you for the fabulous debate tonight. Trustee Reddy?
Can I close?
Sure, you can speak.
Thanks. Yeah, so thanks so much for the discussion so far. I just had a couple points just in closing after we've had a lengthy discussion. I'll be brief, but I do think that parents are demanding and desperately searching for options for out-of-school care in the city. So I really hope to have the support and to meet them halfway at least in believing in the role of a school board to take action by providing the support through the staff that we have, through the infrastructure that we have, and at least looking into it, recognizing that folks at this table may or may not be here to take the steps that come from this action, but just how thankful I am to the parents for stepping up time and time again, coming to the delegation meetings, knowing how difficult that is, signing the letters and demonstrating what a school district can do to meet their needs of their kids and families. So I really see this as something good for our district, but also for our city. And yeah, I hope that there's support to take this very initial preliminary step to start the work.
Those in favor? Trustee Ma, Richardson, Reddy, Freecoat, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Those opposed? Trustee Chin. Okay, the motion carries. We'll move to the next motion on the board. I'm going to ask Trustee Fraser to introduce, and for those following along on the agenda, it is item 2.2.2.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to move that the board direct the superintendent to develop a learning technology and information systems plan for trustees' consideration of part of the 2027-2028 financial planning process.
Do I have a seconder? Trustee Richardson, Trustee Fraser?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And it's been a long budget process. And in the financial plan, the risks, some of the risks were, well, there are many, many risks in the districts, and, you know, many, we've already spoken about how many of the risks are because of the expectations that are put on the district, yet the resources are not provided so that we can do the work. We have a continuing expansion of the digital world in which students live. They sometimes study and they communicate. We have continuing expansion of the way changes in way district staff are doing their work to be more efficient, to put more things online. And we need to make sure that the systems we have in place are effective, they work for the students and the staff, and that they are safe, so that we have the, you know, the data that we hold is secure. We have also heard from several of the stakeholders about access to digital technology and about the use of AI in classrooms and in preparation of work in the district. There are many aspects that are woven together. So I did ask staff about the best wording, and I think you end up with a learning technology and information systems plan, which is a little bit of a word salad, but I think it's broad enough to cover all the pieces that were picked up in the risks, picked up in the delegation submissions from the stakeholders, and also touched on in the engagement summary in the many, many items that people shared their priorities for. So I hope that this work, which is not, it's not a financial ask of the budget, but it's definitely an ask of staff in the district. So it is a resource of time, but I do think it will help trustees in the next budget cycle to have a good understanding of a better understanding of the risks and how to mitigate them.
Comments from trustees? Questions? Trustee Friedcoat.
Question to Trustee Fraser. Is there a cost associated with this?
There's not a dollar amount, but it is staff time.
Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll go to okay, we do have a comment, Trustee Ma.
Question through the chair to the mover. This motion says a plan. Is this a long-term, short-term, or does it encompass both short-term and long-term?
Okay, we'll ask Trustee Fraser to comment.
I think both. When we do the financial planning process, it's for a period of 3 years. So at least for a 3-year period, but I anticipate some parts of the timeline will be contemplated as being part of a longer timeline. But then also there might be immediate allocation of funding in the 1 year. So both short-term and long-term.
Do you have a follow-up?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
No, can I speak on the motion now that I've asked my question? Thanks. So I think this is really important, and I would hope that when the superintendent does look at staff to develop this plan, that we take the short term and the long term in consideration, and probably like a multi-step as well in terms of different aspects. I think the question about the use of AI, we really do need to look at the implication of using a Copilot. We need to look at how all of this technology also factors into our climate sustainability plan as well. And I would hope that it's quite a broad and comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Question to the mover around how this work is done. Does it go to committee for feedback? Is there any other directives, or will that be up to the superintendent?
My expectation is that it would be part of the committee system, but
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments that we see on the? Okay, trustee Reddy, and I just want to remind trustees, we have a big agenda tonight. So if you do have questions or comments, to try and be quick so that we can move things along, as to not waste anyone's time. Trustee Reddy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm definitely not wanting to waste anyone's time with questions about the budget. I don't know if this is a question for staff that they could answer at this moment, but could this work foreseeably include like K to 12 and adult education as well as staff needs, or is that sort of beyond the scope? And maybe the mover and staff would want to comment.
Superintendent?
As I read the motion, it talks about a learning and technology and information system plan, and that's for the VSB. So the VSB includes those things that you were talking about.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands, so we will now go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the screen? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving to our next motion, and thank you all for being quick and prepared. 2.2.3, Trustee Ma, would you please introduce your motion?
Thank you. I would move that the board amend the 2026-2027 draft financial plan and budget to add up to 300 additional hours of supervision aid staffing for the 2026-2027 school year.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Reddy, Trustee Ma, please introduce your rationale.
Yeah, so last year, the board offered to increase supervision aides on a voluntary basis who wanted to take on extra hours, up to a 1.5 hours. And that happened from spring break, I think, until the end of June. And what it allowed to happen was that schools who were using, having IEP meetings, end of the year meetings, planning for the following school year would be able to release classroom teachers and have supervision aides go into our schools to provide relief time. And again, that was on a voluntary basis. So that's why my motion says up to 300. It may not be 300, but I think that this is a small amount to pay. I also understand that there was a costing that was given to trustees today. Secretary Treasurer, can I just ask you to confirm the cost?
So based on the motion, which states that we would add up to 300 additional hours of supervision aid, which equates to roughly 1.09 FTE supervision aid for the entire year for the district, the cost is $9,182.
Okay, sorry, are you finished? Okay. Going to okay, we'll go to Trustee Reddy and then Trustee Friedcoat.
Thanks, Trustee Ma, for bringing this motion. I think it responds to the letter and kind of presentation we received from IUOE, who has indicated the success of this work to date. And so it seems to align with what has been already successful in their view in terms of adding supervision aid staffing, and we know how important those positions are for student safety. So I do support this amendment and thank the Secretary Treasurer for the additional numbers on the cost. Thank you.
Trustee Friedcoat and then Trustee Champedley.
Thank you. So the $9,000 cost is for a year, right?
Sorry, are you asking the mover or are you asking the Secretary Treasurer?
I am
please?
asking Secretary Treasurer.
300 hours of supervision aid staffing for the year is, the cost is $9,182. I would just like to clarify that in the current year, the amount allocated was significantly higher. We allocated an additional 1.5 hours per day for up to 200 supervision aides.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Trustee Friedcoat? Okay, I'll go to Trustee Champedley.
Thank you. My understanding, the additional 200 times 1.5, that was a number that's set by the expectation that those hours would be taken up like on a voluntary basis. Is there expectation that 300 additional hours would be taken up by staffing? Because historically, based on the numbers from previous year, we've already added those hours. So like adding more hours, what does that help with?
Is that a question for the mover? Or is that just?
Question to the mover? Yeah.
My understanding
Ma?
was that the additional hours was from spring break till the end of June, and it was one time. It ended at the end of June.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no, yes, trustee Fraser.
A question to the mover, is this intended, I see that it says for the 26-27 school year, so I'm assuming that is also a one-time cost? Yes, okay.
Are there any other questions or comments before we move to the next item, which is the vote? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of what you see on the screen? Trustee Ma, trustee Richardson, trustee Reddy, trustee Friedcoat, trustee Chan Pedley, trustee Fraser. Those opposed? Okay, trustee Chen and trustee Young. I'd like to move a motion that we direct staff to find out where to take this money from, because it was not in the motion and it contradicts our policy, which is why I voted against and why we're required to have a balanced budget. So I'm going to put it back on the table, and I apologize because I should have caught that. But all of the motions we bring tonight, because the amended budget is balanced, so all of the motions brought by trustees are required to say where the money is coming from. And as we heard earlier, we have very limited contingency funds, so we're going to have to make a motion. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer, and I'll ask that you help in creating that motion to address where it's from. Trustee Richardson.
Seconder to that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson.
Can I speak to it?
As soon as our Secretary Treasurer gets it up on the board, we will speak to it. Trustee Richardson, would you mind turning your microphone off, please? And I'm going to ask the trustees around the board table, actually, if you do have a motion coming up in the package, that you make note of it where in your rationale or in the body of the motion, that we know where it's coming from so we can discuss when it comes up. Okay, I move that the board approve the allocation of $9,200 from operating contingency to fund the additional 300 hours of supervision aid staffing. It was seconded by trustee Richardson. Thank you. Any comments or discussion before we go to a vote? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, trustee Ma, Richardson, Reddy, Friedcoat, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Those opposed? Trustee Chen. Thank you for that housekeeping error on my part. I appreciate your help on getting through that. So we'll now move to our next motion on the agenda. Item 2.2.4, and I will ask Trustee Ma to read the motion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this motion is that I move that the board amend the 2026-2027 draft financial plan and budget to reinstate 3.0 FTE SSB staffing for the 2026-2027 school year. And I think I have to add the STEM and that the board, similar to the motion that just passed, the second motion that just passed, where it's coming out of contingency.
You can just add it as a friendly courtesy. We don't mind if you just want. Ah,
There you go.
perfect. Okay, Flavia, you are.
And that. And hat.
We'll just update it with the right dollar value. And then in the meantime, as we all have the information was provided to trustees, or is there a seconder for this motion? Trustee Reddy, thank you. Thank you to staff for rolling with us as we make amendments on the fly. I appreciate it. And we'll ask Trustee Ma. It has been seconded by Trustee Reddy. Would you, excuse me, trustees? We have a lot to do tonight. Thank you very much. Trustee Ma, go ahead and introduce your motion.
Thank you. So at the April 13th, 2026 special board committee meeting of the whole meeting, the Vancouver District Students Council reps spoke about the importance of supporting student mental health in our secondary schools. They surveyed students and survey results showed that students identified youth workers as playing important roles in supporting student mental health. Recently, at the City of Vancouver's Children, Youth and Family Advisory Committee, serving as the VSB's liaison trustee to this committee, City of Vancouver staff showed a report from their Building Safer Communities recent survey where they surveyed over 400 youth, asking them about what would improve their quality of life. Mental health support was stated as critically needed, and the survey showed that student mental health continues to decline in our city. In last year's budget, we reallocated 9 FTE from the Safe and Caring Schools program to fund more SSAs. Some of the 9 FTE were SSB positions. Student support worker Bs or SSBs work with our at-risk youth who need additional support and in areas of social, emotional learning, behavior, mental health, and/or learning difficulties. The draft 2026-27 financial plan proposes a 3.0 FTE cut to SSB staffing and states that these cuts will affect Britannia and David Thompson. If this staff is not needed specifically for these two programs, the SSB positions could be redeployed elsewhere to other schools where they can continue to support our at-risk youth. Indicators show that the need for mental health supports have not gone down, so cutting this valuable staffing will negatively impact vulnerable youth. And I would also like to say that we know that time and time again, we hear about mental health as one of the key goals. Mental well-being is one of the key goals of our education plan. And yet when we cut SSB service, these personnel that work with youth with health and mental health, social challenges, behavioral challenges, we are doing a disservice to some of our most needy students in our district. So we need to reverse this. We need to find the money. We can redeploy these people. We need to have these people on the ground working with our youth.
Okay, Trustee Friedcoat and then Trustee Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. I am in support of this motion. I think the data and the voices of the students are very clear. Mental health issues are increasing day after day. And we need more staff that works with the students in the schools every single day. Cutting these type of services is not benefiting anyone. It's just increased more issues in our community. And so I would support that where staffing is actually required, we should we should be deploying more staff over there. So overall, this motion reflects what the students are telling us. They need consistent and accessible mental health support in our schools. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Trustee Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate we're having this discussion, and there are so many needs in the district. If you look at the engagement summary report, pretty much anything we spend money on, we could spend more money on. I appreciate the work that staff did in this part of the financial plan, which is the enrollment-driven changes in staffing. So while there will be 3 fewer SSB support staff, there will be 3 additional SSA staff. And I know it's not easy to make changes, but I appreciate that the intent is to meet the intent is to reallocate the staffing positions based on enrollment to where the need is the greatest. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Trustee Reddy.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Trustee Ma, for this budget amendment on the 3 FTE SSB. I work very closely with both of these secondary schools in the district for almost 10 years, and specifically with the SSBs, and just want to confirm how unique the relationships are with students, sometimes being the reason that they're coming back to school on a daily basis, or able to ask questions and navigate the life of K-12 life and education, and transitioning out of high school as well. So I want to thank you for highlighting that, and the importance that really these specific roles played, that they're not interchangeable, that these relationships are built and critical to the success of the students who depend on them. So I do support the amendment and appreciate where it's coming from. Thank you.
Any further comments before we go to a vote? Okay, Trustee Ma, you can close and then we'll go to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. So a comment just to say that SSAs are not the same as SSBs. SSBs are in a different category unto themselves, where they work specifically with at-risk youth, and SSAs predominantly do not work in our secondary schools. So again, I really strongly urge you to support this. Our youth deserve it, and they need it, and we need to do this.
All those in favor? Trustee Ma, Reddy, and Friedcoat. Those opposed? Trustee Richardson, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. The motion is defeated. We'll go to item 2.2.5, and I'll go back to Trustee Ma.
I would move that the VSB 2026-2027 budget fund the provision of teachers on call to replace absent resource teachers on their first day of absence, and that this funding will come from a reduction in the divisional superintendent and divisional superintendent office budgets and other areas in the budget that do not affect direct instruction to students.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Reddy. Trustee Ma?
This one is really near and dear to me because I was a resource teacher many, many years ago. And I remember when this policy was implemented, where I would not be replaced until 3 days of being away from school. I worked with students with a lot of needs, challenges, and when I was away, there was nobody to replace me, and those students did not receive support. This has been going on now in Vancouver for over 10 years, maybe actually 20 years. And I just think about how many hours of instruction, of special support students with diverse learning needs have not received. When we don't spend this money and we put this money elsewhere in our system, students suffer. Students don't catch up. And resource teachers are critical in our schools. They are the ones that do all of our IEPs. They coordinate meetings with parents, with other staff members, with SSAs that work in the school, with the administrators that work in the school. These teachers are critically needed to support students with needs. So my concern is we have been not spending this money for years and years. And I think that this motion, thank you to Trustee Reddy. I believe that Trustee Reddy brought this motion a year or two ago. And I think that other trustees before our board took office also brought these motions forward. So we need to take a stand. I know that in our draft financial plan on page 63 of 68, there's a statement that says a TTOC would not be able to replicate this targeted support on a casual basis. We cannot use this rationale to continue with the non-replacement policy, as we're basically saying to the public, we're saying to students, we're saying to parents and families that we would rather not provide a needed service to students and that their program basically stops for a day or two before their service is replaced. And we do, everybody that we hire are qualified teachers who can provide service, who are certificated teachers. And as a trustee, I believe in their ability to do this.
Are there any comments, Trustee Freecoat?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, actually. Does the resource teacher, from what my understanding is, that they meet with the students on like not daily basis, but on a case by case situation? So is that true, or does the resource teachers, if they're absent, they need replacement right away because that's affecting the students? So can you answer that, please?
Sure, I'll ask Allison Ogden.
Thanks for the question through the chair. Our resource teachers in schools provide a variety of services. I think sort of to your question, they're responding to every student's individual education plan, and those vary across the needs of all students. So there would be small group work, there's push-in support that happen in classrooms, and it's all directed by a student's individual education plan. So those folks coming into our schools would need to familiarize themselves with those individual education plans and get up to speed about how to implement that. Certainly, our school-based resource teachers could leave weekly, I would say, detailed plans about how they're working with students, but those would be constantly evolving plans. And I think a lot of our folks who are sick for a day or two don't necessarily have those very detailed plans that would provide guidance to somebody. Certainly someone who's going to be away could prepare that to support the work.
Do you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Thank you. So if a teacher is absent, a resource teacher is absent, and there's a TTOC in place for that, they won't have the full information of those particular cases for those students. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. They would have to take a bit of time to learn how to do that.
Trustee Chin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trustee Ma, to bring this up. Very important. Just want to get clarified as for the areas in the budget that do not affect direct instruction to students, can Trustee Ma propose maybe which area of the budget can be used, for example?
I think that work would be done by the Secretary Treasurer to find these areas. It's really hard when we look at the budget, the way that it's structured, to find out where there are bits and pieces and where the spending comes out of. So for example, for supporting inclusion, there would be administrative costs that come out of that budget, right? There would be teachers that come out of that budget. There would be resource teachers that come out of that budget. So it's really hard to say this line item, again, the line items that we have been given in the schedules they combine a lot of different things. So I don't, unless we had what's called a divisional budget, which shows line by line where everything is being spent, for example, like toilet paper, like pens and pencils, like all of that stuff, we wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't know because I've never seen a very detailed divisional budget, a line by line item budget. So not having that, I would have to rely on the expertise of the Secretary Treasurer to find other areas of cost savings.
Just a point of clarification, when you worked with staff on this motion, did they give you other areas or did they provide any? Sorry, would you mind speaking to your microphone?
No, they did not.
Okay. Trustee Friedcote.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking at the cost. It's actually $2.6 million that needs to be covered. From what I understand from Allison, that even though there's a TTOC for a resource teacher replacement, they still wouldn't have access to the case for those students, and it would take them time to even understand what the job is. So I don't know where the budget 2.6 million is going to come from the superintendent office. And also, I think it's not directly affecting the students in the class. It is on the case by case, which is individual education plan, IEP. So I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Trustee Richardson.
Chair, I will not be supporting this motion, although I believe last year, the year before, I believe Trustee Reddy did bring this similar motion forward, and the same information was brought to our attention that frankly, although a teacher's a teacher's a teacher, this is work of a resource teacher is very specialized and it's unique to a child. And I think I'm pained, and this was the basis of the thesis that a group of us completed a year ago, the importance of identifying and then dealing with and supporting a student that's struggling. But I would vote against, I'm intending to vote against this. I'm not diminishing the need to support those children. The suggestion that they don't need support, they certainly do. But I would hope that we could look at, maybe a staffing approach that would have a team approach that there is more than one resource teacher that would in fact be familiar. There may be a primary and a secondary contact for a student so that in fact there would be that opportunity to provide support. But at this point, simply substituting a teacher in day one and day two, it's unfortunate, and it is something that we should address. But I don't think at this point that this would be a use of an additional 2.6 million against our budget would be appropriate use of funding. But we should look to address this as best we can. And I know we've been struggling with it for many years. Thank you.
Trustee Reddy.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Trustee Ma, for bringing this forward and for outlining how long the issue has been affecting students in the district. I just wanted to highlight a few aspects of the resource teacher replacement issue and recognizing it's a school district choice to replace resource teachers on the first, second, or third day of absence. And, what we hear and have heard from parents time and time again and students is that when you add those 3 days and you have a stat or any other interruption in the week, that could mean a whole week of lost instructional support for students. And that's really about having a qualified adult, a professional sitting beside you while you're going through critical learning material and the difference between you advancing in your academics and not. So it's a really critical choice that districts can make by replacing the resource teacher earlier than the 3 days of absence. And I just wanted to highlight an increasing trend is that the pressure is not only felt on the students that lose the support, but the entire classroom of kids who are affected when they don't have the additional supports that are needed for their peers to ensure that learning can take place for everyone. So really appreciate you, Trustee Ma, for bringing this forward. I do think it's a district choice, and where we do see it fall out of place is when this shows up in a surplus at the end of the year. So when I look at the amount, I don't think it's far from what we could allocate in order to see the results in higher academic achievement and hopefully not see that in the surplus side of the budget at the end of the fiscal year. So I do support this motion. Thank you.
Any other comments before we close? Trustee Richardson.
I just want to clarify, maybe staff can clarify. The suggestion was that we don't replace after 3 days. My understanding is we replace after 2 days. Is that not the case? But, and I appreciate that 1 day is too long, but.
We can clarify. Alison Ogden, would you mind commenting?
Through the chair, my understanding is we replace on the 3rd day.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments before we move to close? Okay, I just want to make a quick comment in regards to something a trustee just said about the capabilities of our TTOCs. And we hire absolutely incredible educators in this district. And whether they are showing up as a regular teacher or a TTOC, I want to just say how much I support their work and that they are fully capable and incredible humans who are doing great work. And so to suggest that they are not providing adequate educational services because they're showing up as a teacher on call, I completely disagree with. And I felt it necessary to just say that they're doing great work and I support them. Trustee Ma, would you like to close?
Thank you, Chair. We have the opportunity to reverse years and years of non-support. When we talk about resource teachers, they don't just work one-on-one. Some resource teachers go into the classroom and support other students as well as the students that need extra support. And in doing so, they support not only the classroom teacher, but the SSAs that are also in that classroom, working with all children. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we had more qualified teachers and qualified SSAs who do remarkable work in our classrooms to support not just the students with diverse learning needs, but all the students in our classes?
As a point of procedure, I'm going to ask that we make an amendment to include the dollar value, as I missed that previously. And I appreciate your patience. So I'm going to ask the Secretary Treasurer to add that into the motion that we currently see on the screen to accommodate for the budget allocation. And I'm looking to see if there's a seconder who would support me. If there's no objection, it's approved by consensus. Thank you. That's a better way to do it. Thank you. Okay, so the motion reads, that the VSB 2026-27 budget fund the provision of teachers on call to replace absent resource teachers on their first day of absence, and that this funding of 2.697552 million will come from a reduction in the divisional superintendent and divisional superintendent office budgets and other areas in the budget that do not affect direct instruction to students. Okay, seeing no other comments, we're going to go to a vote. All those in favor? Trustee Ma and Trustee Reddy, those opposed? Trustees Richardson, Chan, Friedcoat, Chan, Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Okay, the motion is defeated, and we'll go to agenda item 2.2.6. Trustee Ma, will you please read your motion?
Chair, I think this one needs to include the, thank you.
Thank you, staff. You are quick. We appreciate you very much. Okay, would you mind reading your?
Yes, thank
new-
you, Chair. So I would move that the board amend the 2026-2027 draft financial plan and budget to reinstate 1.0 FTE teacher of the visually impaired staffing and 1.0 FTE hospital homebound teacher staffing for the 2026-2027 school year, and that the board approve the allocation of $280,778 from the operating contingency to fund the additional 2.0 FTE teacher staffing.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Reddy, Trustee Ma, please give us your rationale.
All right, so the decrease of the 1.0 FTE visually impaired teacher who works at the district level will result in leaving 2 teachers to provide service to the entire district. This service is highly specialized, and it will be extremely difficult to recruit this position in the future should support needs increase. The position took a whole year to fill, and this indicates that the scarcity of these types of teaching professionals in BC. The teacher of the visually impaired not only directly supports students with just visual impairments, but works with other school staff and parents to ensure that the student programs are met with continuity with that specialized support. In addition, if service needs go up due to newly designated visually impaired students, it's doubtful that we would be able to find a TTOC to temporarily help with the increased workload. So this is sort of mirroring what the last rationale with, like we have people in our district that provide highly specialized service. It's extremely difficult to find these people, and it's also difficult to retain these people. And so if we lose this visually impaired teacher, that doesn't sound right, does it? Teacher of the visually impaired, that would have a detrimental effect on the students that need the support. The second part of this is the decrease of 1.0 FTE to the hospital homebound teacher, which would leave 1 teacher for the entire district to support students who are ill, who may be in a hospital, who may be too ill to physically attend school or mentally to attend school. And I know that in the draft budget, there was an explanation that maybe VLN, the Vancouver Learning Network program, would provide this service. They are an online school, and some of the students that would be needing this hospital homebound service may not even be able to sit up and access a laptop or use technology to access their coursework. To leave the district with 1 teacher to service both elementary and secondary would lead to an overall teacher workload and also possibly compromising the type of service that we provide to these extremely vulnerable. I mean, I think that's sort of the mantra or the theme of this budget is we are negatively affecting the most vulnerable students in our district. We need to stop doing this.
May I ask a question to staff with regard to if there has been a decline, why this move was made to have this motion be brought to the board? Allison Ogden,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. As part of our yearly ongoing work, we are looking at enrollment patterns, and we're seeing a decline in the number of students using these teachers for support. So looking forward and doing projections into the future, we will have 14 students in the district who will require support from a resource teacher, a vision resource teacher. This year we had also 14 students who are accessing the services of our 2 hospital homebound teachers. And that pattern has been something that's been stable the last couple of years. And our provincial resource programs that provide teachers within our hospital programs do provide educational support for students in hospital in all of the various wards at Children's.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions from trustees? I see trustee Friedcoat, trustee Fraser, and then, okay, we'll go to you first, trustee Friedcoat.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I have a question to the staff that we had 14 students and we had 2 full-time hospital homebound teacher allocated for that. If we're reducing one, would that not affect or impact the services that we're providing to these students?
Thanks. Through the chair, we are seeing a decline in the number of students accessing hospital homebound. So this year was again a decline that we didn't anticipate for that. I would also say that this is ratioed staffing as part of our collective agreement. So this staffing will actually be going to support students in schools, so a greater number of students. So it will go in as resource teacher time in our schools.
Okay, trustee Fraser, you're up next.
Thank you. My question's been answered.
Okay, wonderful. We'll go to trustee Reddy next.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Trustee Ma for raising this. I'm glad to be able to discuss how important it is to offer these kinds of services for kids who do fall ill. So my understanding is that the placement and kind of offer of this support is what's critical for the unforeseeable circumstances, and that these positions create some sense of normalcy and bridging back for kids. And I've seen this program in action from K to 12. So I think that it would be important for us to continue to offer the support, because it isn't easy to anticipate when children will fall ill and need this kind of support. So it would be incumbent on us to offer it so that it is available should a student need it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands up, I'll make a quick comment. I think we need to live in a reality and make choices in reality. And if we don't have a lot of funds to do, to provide adequate services, then we shouldn't be spending it on services that we don't have students for. So I will not be supporting this, as we just heard from staff that all students are being accommodated and provided with adequate resourcing for what we've heard. I'm going to ask that it be closed now and then go to a vote.
So I think it's important to recognize that these positions, particularly the teacher of the visually impaired, is a highly specialized position. The board always has the option, if there's a teacher for a particular program or a school for that matter, if they are not needed, that they could be reassigned. And I am very concerned that if we whittle it down from 3 to 2, that we will lose that person. And we may not be able to find a person to fulfill that role for a very long time.
All those in favor? Trustee Ma, trustee Reddy, trustee Friedcoat. Those opposed? Trustees Richardson, Chan, Pedley, Fraser, and Young. The motion is defeated. We'll move to our next motion tonight. We have 2.2.7. And we are going to ask Trustee Ma to read her motion.
Thank you very much. I would move that the board amend the 2020, 26, 2027 draft financial plan and budget to reinstate the 1.0 FTE district teacher librarian staffing for the 2026-2027 school year, and that the board approve the allocation of 140,389 from operating contingency to fund the additional 1.0 FTE teacher staffing.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Friedcoat, thank you. Trustee Ma, please motivate.
I will motivate for sure. Okay, so currently there's only one person that's working to liaise with all the elementary and secondary school teacher librarians. We, at the public delegation meeting on April 15th, we heard from 2 delegates that spoke about the importance of our school libraries. It might be noted that out there in our district, there are many schools, elementary schools, that do not have full-time teacher librarians. Some of our schools do, which is fantastic. And we know that the board is committed to literacy, and literacy comes with being able to access libraries in our district. And when you have over 100 and some odd sites with school libraries, and there's nobody at the board level to coordinate professional development, in-service options to go and work with new teacher librarians, options to develop workshops on specific topics, for example, like Indigenous education or inclusive education, or working with looking at collections, helping school teacher librarians look at collections. We need somebody at the district level to support that work. And so that's why I am moving this motion.
May I ask a question to staff? We've seen a reduction, and just some clarification on how we are planning to support without the 1 FTE that is mentioned in the motion. Maureen McRae-Stanger, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So as part of our budget process, staffing models are reviewed to ensure that resources are being used where they have the greatest impact on our students. As part of this review, the reduction of the district teacher librarian mentor position is proposed to better align with our current instructional priorities and our budget realities. In the past few years, our learning and instruction department has shifted towards a coordinated team-based model that supports all areas of curriculum in schools. Our curriculum and assessment teachers are an essential part of the learning and instruction team. They spend the majority of their time in classrooms providing direct support to students across multiple subjects and grades, while also providing collaboration and mentorship opportunities to teachers as they work alongside them in our schools. The Learning and Instruction Department, as well as our Learning and Information Technology Department, will work collaboratively with our teacher librarians in schools to support all aspects of literacy, including digital literacy and professional development. 2 librarian technician positions in the LIT department will also continue to support teacher librarians with ongoing software and cataloging needs.
Thanks for that info. Trustee Friedcoat.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trustee Ma, for bringing this motion. I am in support of this motion. I have worked very closely with the district teacher librarians and know how much work they do behind the scene, and how their position affects the librarian or the students in the school. On a district level, actually, they have a very wide type of impact on schools, supporting professional learning, resources sharing, and making sure there is a consistency and equity in all the libraries. So cutting this one full-time position will have a big impact on the district, and I would support this motion to actually retain this librarian. Thank you.
Trustee Reddy?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Trustee Ma, for highlighting the importance of the district teacher librarian position. I think an added piece that supports this work is how critical the support is to new teachers and staff in the district to be able to go to somebody to support them. And on the heels of continued cuts to library hours, the resources available in the library, we know from students how harmful that is. When you don't have access to a library and librarians in your school community in the building. So having this support is critical, recognizing both incoming teachers and other staff, but also to make sure that students are supported across the district, knowing that there have been progressive cuts over the years to library hours and resourcing. So I do support this motion and hope that we could retain this critical role.
May I ask Maureen, just a quick question, something that Trustee Reddy just said around having access to a librarian or having someone with the resourcing at a school. Are you able to just comment on that? And as a 1 FTE district teacher librarian, will that affect a student who is looking for the resourcing as mentioned in their school, and will they still have access to help in schools?
Thank you to the chair. Yes, so all students can access their library, excuse me, at their schools. Some schools do have teacher librarian hours attached to that. Some schools also have some other blocks they assign to library prep, where teachers can be in there to support students to get books and resources that they need.
Thank you. And to clarify, so you're saying that other teachers will be trained to provide the services. There just will be one reduced FTE at a district level, but those supports will still be there.
So there's no additional training. Teacher librarian is a trained position, but in schools, schools that might not have a full-time librarian, oftentimes might use their vice principal allocation time to support prep coverage and bringing students in the library to be able to exchange books.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Trustee Friedcote.
I have a question and then maybe a comment after. So a district teacher librarian, how many do we have in the district right now?
We have one district position for teacher librarian. The other positions are directly in schools, in school libraries.
Okay, sorry, a follow-up. So thank you, Chair. So the one district teacher librarian position that we have is the one that we're cutting right now.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. One more, sorry. Okay, so there is a lot of, I don't know if anybody knows, there is a lot of different type of software that the teacher librarian use in the libraries to check out or, the books and there's a lot of resources that they have to collect on a regular basis to pass it to the teachers. This position, if we only have one district teacher librarian and we're cutting that position, I think we're doing a very big mistake. These are very specialized, skilled teachers, and they're very critical to the educational that we provide in the school. Cutting this position, it is going to affect, I would say, not directly, but like indirectly. It's like a triple down effect, and it is going to affect the school. I don't think cutting a position is a good choice at this moment.
Seeing no other hands up, we'll go to closing of the motion, if you would like. No? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor? Trustees Ma, Reddy, Chen, and Friedcote. Those opposed? Richardson, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. The motion is defeated. We'll move to our next motion. And I will ask Trustee Ma to read 2.2.8 agenda motion.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that the board amend the 2026-2027 draft financial plan and budget to reflect the full $325,000 City of Vancouver food grant for the 2026-27 school year as soon as the grant is confirmed by the City of Vancouver.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Reddy. I also want to do a quick check with everyone. How are you doing? Does anyone need a moment for a break? Okay, just wanted to confirm. Okay, now that we've, I meant to do that before we moved the motion, but I just want to check in with you guys, okay? Trustee Ma, please motivate your motion.
Yeah, we're on a roll now, so we might as well just push through, right? We can do it. So in 2025-26, the City of Vancouver's food grant of $325,000 was restored by unanimous decision by City Council. And I would like to take this moment to thank the Advocacy Committee and also our chair, who went to the City of Vancouver to push to get this grant restored. But the draft 2026-27 financial plan only shows that there's 162,000 applied in the plan because the 2027 grant has not been confirmed by the City of Vancouver. So what we want to do with this motion is to express our continued support for advocacy for the ongoing provision of the City of Vancouver food grant and to reflect the full amount in the 2026-2027 draft financial plan should the funding be confirmed. But I am hoping and crossing my fingers that this grant will be continued because I think there is appetite for supporting food to our needy students in our Vancouver. In fact, I think this goes not far enough. I think the City of Vancouver should support us with more money because what we all believe in is a universal food program.
Trustee Fraser.
Thank you. I'm a little confused about when the City of Vancouver provided the money and when we allocated it into our budget. So maybe if staff could speak to that.
Secretary Treasurer.
So funding was confirmed, the $325,000 was confirmed earlier this year. And it is funding that spans 2 fiscal years for the VSB. So in our amended budget for the current year for 25-26, we included half of the grant. And the other half is included in the 2026-27 draft financial plan because we have been told that there is no assurance that this grant is going to continue in future years. We have not included an estimate for a grant from the City of Vancouver in our draft financial plan. So we don't have the second part of the 325 included, and that would be included as soon as the city confirms that the grant is provided and is going to come with corresponding expenses depending on what the terms and conditions of that new grant from the city may be.
Do you have a follow-up, Trustee Fraser?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the entire $325,000 that the city did allocate to the VSB has been split over 2 financial years. And if the City of Vancouver gives another 325,000 grant, then we will apply that to our budget. But I'm not sure if the motion is needed, because if we get the grant, then we will apply it.
So what this motion does, it allows for the amendment of the budget before the formal amended budget process. So if the City of Vancouver was to announce the grant, let's say in the fall, that the budget would immediately be amended and the funds be spent in accordance with the grant stipulations. Otherwise, the budget would only be amended during the regular process, which sees the budget being approved by the end of February.
So it's just a question of timing. If this motion is approved, then if the city of Vancouver approves their grant, then it can be spent immediately. Is that correct? Okay.
That is correct.
Trustee Richardson.
Maybe I'm still confused, so that if we pass this motion and everyone wants a universal food program, and one part of that step towards that is that the city continue the grant, and then we get other funding. But at this point, there's no need to fund it, because this is just directing staff that we will, because our budget is approved by the end of April. So if we haven't heard by then, is it not? It's cast in stone. And that if the city was of a mind to give us the additional money, we'll do it in the amended motion. So I'm really not sure how this motion is affecting what we're doing, because we're affecting the budget that we're going to be asked to approve next Wednesday. Is that? I mean, this is aspirational, and it's stating that our hope that the city will continue to fund as they should.
I'm going
This
to ask the superintendent to comment as well.
I'll have a try at summarizing what I've heard. So there is a mismatch between the funding period of the city, their budget, and our process, which is why you end up with this split funding between 2 years. They tell us that their grant is coming for a year. So currently, what we know we have in hand is the current amount for the remaining half of the year, which is $162,000 approximately. If the city, so right now our budget, you can only budget for what you know you have, right? So we built in the revenue and we built in the expenses for that funding. If the city in the fall says, hey, your grant is being renewed for whatever dollar amount it is, we would need to wait until the amended budget process that happens usually in February, where all of you sit around the table, you look at where the financial position is, and you direct staff as to what the amended budget would be. And that would incorporate if there was new funds in. What this motion is doing is saying if the city announces funding in the fall, that staff have permission to move forward with the revenue that's being received for the new amount of grant and the expenses. So students don't need to wait to receive the support of this food funding until we get to the amended budget. Is that helpful explanation for folks in the summary of what has transpired?
I still see some confused faces. Let's put those faces to questions. You're satisfied? Trustee Richardson?
I believe you that I will pass this because I'm hopeful that we'll get the money in September. I can't imagine if an outside donor gave us some money tomorrow, we couldn't use it tomorrow, but we would have to wait to the next budget. But maybe that's fine. So
Is there, I would like to ask staff if there's if this motion were to pass, what are any ramifications of that to the budget or to students? Secretary Treasurer.
At this moment, there will be no implications. It only gets enacted when the city confirms the grant.
So just to clarify, this motion is asking that we do something that is already going to happen. Okay, so I'm just as confused as Trustee Richardson. Please clarify.
So this motion only comes into effect when the city of Vancouver announces a new food grant. And Trustee Ma, in the rationale for the motion, noted the need for continued advocacy to the city of Vancouver for this to be realized. So this motion would not result in any changes to the financial plan as currently drafted. But if the city of Vancouver does announce a grant, before we go to amended budget, we will actually enact this motion and immediately start utilizing the funds that are received from the city of Vancouver to provide food programs in our schools.
Thank you. So we'll be providing food at a more efficient rate based on this motion. Thank you very much. Clear. Okay, any other comments before we close? Great, Trustee Ma.
Thank you. So hopefully everybody understands what's happening. I think it's important for us as a board to take a position and to say to the city of Vancouver that we need this money and we need it as soon as possible, and that we should be spending this money as soon as we get it, because getting food to our students quicker is better than having to wait until February. So I would like to see this motion pass and get our advocacy group to start talking about the increased need to move towards a universal food program.
All those in favor? Okay, Trustee Ma, Richardson, Reddy, Chan Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Those opposed? Trustee Chen, abstentions? Trustee Friedcote. Okay, the motion has passed. We will now move to our last motion tonight, which is item 2.2.9, and I will ask Trustee Reddy to read it.
Thanks, Chair. So the motion I'll read from the screen is on page 15 of the agenda package, that the board approve that any and all funding for students with disabilities or diverse abilities that is being spent on principals and vice principals' salaries be redirected to direct classroom support for students with disabilities or diverse abilities. Any further increase in funding for inclusive education from the Ministry of Education and Childcare for the 26-27 school year be spent directly on classroom support, not administrators, nor redirected to surplus.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Ma, please motivate your motion.
Thanks. I'll just start with that. Whereas inclusive education funding in the past has been used to pay salaries of principals and vice principals and can be redirected by the board for direct classroom support. We heard from delegations that there are inconsistencies and questions about, although increasing the number of SSAs, there are still inconsistencies in whether or not that's actually increasing the quality of education for kids, given that the deployment of the SSAs can have impacts on students' learning when it isn't consistent. So I think the intention here is to make sure that any funds and all funds accepted for inclusive education are going to those kids in the classrooms, and that we continue to direct that in our budget as a board. Thank you.
Okay, are there any comments or questions? I see Trustee Ma and then Trustee Chen.
Just a question of clarification to the mover. Trustee Reddy? Are you talking about school-based principals and vice principals?
Trustee Reddy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Trustee Ma. Yes.
Trustee Chen?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trustee Reddy, to propose this motion. Just want to get a clarification. So right now we are moving, I do see on the note saying that because overstaffing ratio, we'll have less 2.2 million funding from the minister.
Okay, that's a question for the Secretary Treasurer? Sure,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Thank you. So currently we receive funding from the Ministry of Education and Childcare under the Classroom Enhancement Fund to allow for teacher staffing to be added over and above operating supported resource teachers. That funding, if this motion was to pass, will no longer be provided because the district will utilize operating funding to fund those positions instead of accessing the Classroom Enhancement Fund, that funding that is provided by the Ministry of Education in order to meet collective agreement requirements with respect to non-enrolling ratios.
Thank you. Any follow-up on that? Okay, we'll go to Trustee Friedcote.
Okay, couple of questions. Sorry, I'm trying to understand this motion. So my question is to the mover, how do you think we're gonna allocate the money from the principal and vice principals to the classroom? And my second question is, if this motion passed, as it mentioned, we're losing $2.2 million the funding that we're getting. So just trying to understand the intent of this motion. Thank you.
Trustee Reddy, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Trustee Friedcoat. So my understanding from the last budget process where we did receive the breakdown of how inclusive education dollars were being spent is that there was over 3 million going to principals and vice principals, although we didn't get that same table in this budget process. My intention here is to make sure that the board is directing all dollars to the classroom and not to the principals and vice principals as we've seen in previous years. So that's where it's coming from with the sort of limited information we have at this point, not having that exact table that we had in previous years that showed a higher percentage going to principals and vice principals, upwards of 3 million away from the classroom support. So that would be my response to how to allocate. In terms of the loss of the 2.2 million, I can't speak to that. I think that's more what the Secretary Treasurer commented on. Thank you.
Secretary Treasurer, would you please comment on what you just heard? And
So-
provide the page number if
Thank you.
possible to the amended budget.
So the information that you're referring to, Trustee Reddy, was provided to the board as part of the package that was circulated on April 7th. It is part of the bylaw. It is Schedule 2C, and it's page 8 of Schedule 2C. So that's where the information is available with the specific breakdown of expenses for Function 110, inclusive education.
Thank you very much. Are there additional questions from trustees? We'll go to Trustee Fraser.
I'm curious, looking at the table and at the information provided on the costs, it's about $2.5 million on principal and vice principal salaries for inclusive education. I'm curious about what is the work that the VPs do.
Is that for Allison Ogden? I believe so. Thank you.
Through the chair, I believe that's teaching time that our vice principals have at elementary school where they provide direct resource support to students. So those are that's teaching time of vice principals for a resource.
Okay, thank you. We've follow up from Trustee Fraser.
So my understanding is VPs in elementary schools are typically, or are they always, a full-time position, and there's some of their time allocated to being a VP and some time allocated to teaching. If we were to, it seems as though from the information provided on the funding, if we were to take away their resource, if we were to reallocate the resource time, then what we would do, we'd have the VPs as enrolling teachers, and would that be to maintain a VP in that position full-time?
Through the chair, I can answer that. Yes, those elementary vice principals would pick up teaching time, and that resource time would be allocated to resource teachers.
Trustee Richardson, is that a hand?
So through the chair, to Assistant Superintendent Ogden, I'm still confused. So we now have, and I understood that on a case, or based upon the school needs, a vice principal or principal would provide students, to students with disabilities or diverse abilities. So in passing this motion, it is how it will impact in the school setting the support for those students in need.
Through the chair, that resource time, and these vice principals are trained resource teachers, to be clear. People who are vice principals were previously teachers. These are folks who come to that work with training. So what it would mean would be those vice principals would pick up like an enrolling grade 2 class as part of lots of our vice principals at elementary are 0.2 vice principal, 0.8 teacher, or 0.3, 0.7. So corresponding, they would pick up the teaching time, and that resource time would then be allocated to a teacher.
To clarify that that allocated time to a teacher is a teacher who has the training or has the experience as a resource teacher, because in a previous motion, we were discussing how specialized that engagement with a student is for that. So we're just trading, in passing this motion, we're just trading from one qualified person doing a qualified classroom job to a qualified resource teacher who is then going to do what that other, okay. What did okay.
Would you mind speaking into the mic? Just, I don't know, I couldn't see what the head nods were, and for those who are listening at home.
Through the
Please.
chair, yes.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Friedcoat and then Trustee Fraser.
Thank you. So my question is back to Assistant Sup Ogden. So there is no direct impact on the classroom support for students with disabilities or diverse abilities because the vice principal is covering for those positions.
Through the chair, yes, correct. There would still be service for students with disabilities or diverse abilities.
So, okay, sorry, just to follow up. So in this motion, basically what it's saying is directing the salaries to the classroom support. And the salaries are going to the VP because they are actually they're actually supporting the classroom. And that's going for the teaching time and not for the actual VP position.
Through the chair, correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Fraser.
So I think what I understood is that the unintended consequence of this motion is that if the if the switch has to be to the VP to be enrolling teacher, we lose $2.2 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, you know, I want to make sure that students of diverse abilities and disabilities, you know, get the supports they need. I can understand why that should be supported by teachers, but in many of our elementary schools, the VPs, because they're not full-time roles, take on teaching. But I can't support a change that would result in a loss of $2.2 million within the district.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments before we move to a vote? Trustee Reddy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I can sense like a bit of tension between like the practice and sort of the theory of what we'd want to establish. And I understand the current practice and reality in our district with the vice principals and principals covering those classrooms. And I think the intention here is to get back to a principled approach that would enable the sort of correct composition of support in the classroom that isn't relying on the vice principals and principals to take such a large portion of the funding that we're receiving. So I think that's something that we raised last year with the parent support and this year again to improve the consistency of support in the district and not relying so much on funds going to the administration line item. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments before we move on? Okay, we'll ask the mover to close. You're good? Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor? Trustee Ma and Trustee Reddy, those opposed? Trustees Richardson, Chan, Friedcoat, Chan, Pedley, Fraser, and Young. Okay, the motion is defeated. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's still awake in the audience and for being here. This is the hard work of the board, and it is always informed by the people who show up consistently, who provide their input, who send us emails, who do a lot of hard work on the outside so that we can do the work here at the table. I want to thank a teacher I met yesterday, Daniel from Churchill, who says he watches every single one of our board meetings. Thank you. And to everyone around the table, you know, this is the hard work, and this is hard work, and this is what democracy looks like. And I'm really proud of the work we do each year at this table. And I thank staff for all the hours you put into creating this amended budget for us. The financial plan has a lot of line items, and you continue to show up for us and to answer our questions, and we are grateful. So if there are no objections from the board, we will adjourn by consensus. Thank you very much. We adjourn at 7:55 p.m.